Well, let's go right to our program. Fred Brower will speak about lifetimes, banners, all kinds of things.
Thanks, Bob. You'll soon find that I'm not up to par today, but I have my crib sheet here and I'll try to deliver. One thankful thing is that Fisher's not here, so I don't have to verify every statistic I give. But I want to talk about our club. I'm approaching 94 and I am the last of the founding members and the charter members. And there is a difference between founding members and charter members. So I'll start off with the founding of the club. Somebody in Rotary heaven decided that Oxford needed a Rotary club. And this was passed on to our district governor, who fingered the Hamilton Club as our sponsor. And so early in the year of our founding, Paul Armstead, a local financial guru, was designated by the Hamilton Club to be our intermediary and to work with us into our founding mode. Paul was here for at least, I think, 4 or 5 months every week, meeting with the founding members. And those were the 8 people that were initiated, or not initiated, that were initially charged with organizing the club here. That brought us into a position where we had to familiarize ourselves with Rotary International, with the rules and regulations of Rotary International. So, lesson that Paul taught us through our 8 founders, and I must mention that of the 8, I'm the only one standing. Bob Miller, who really deserves so much of the credit for founding our club, has been in medical condition for the past 5 years, almost 5 years. And so he is not with us and cannot be with us. So I'm speaking on behalf of Bob, really. But Paul Armstead met with us regularly and to acquaint us with the requirements of membership. And there were some regulations that are no longer required, I would add as a little postscript, but were very, very significant and important in that day. One of which being that less than 2 members of a Rotary club could be in the same profession. So if you can kind of visualize that. Well, we worked around that one. We claimed Miami's presence, and we negotiated a deal with Rotary International where our limit was 30%. And we very quickly filled that 30% as we went from the 8 founders to the 25 charter members that were initiated on the charter member initiation. Which Bob here is my post. When I falter, he's going to pick me up.
Doing great.
But he reminded me where the founding dinner was, and it was attended, I'm going to say, by at least 200 Rotarians from this area, and it was held in Withrow Court, the old Miami University gym. So we made a pretty good impression on filling Withrow Court. Ultimately, we got a little bit away from that 30% regulation. We're a long ways from there now. And at one point in time, we had all 3 members of Miami University's presidency in this club. Uncle Phil was with us from almost the beginning. Wonderful Dr. Paul Pearson came along quickly. And when that old fellow, John D. Millett, resigned from active duty, he back to Oxford to live. And of course, he had to be initiated into Rotary. So we had 3 presidents in the club. We had a cantankerous guy by the name of John Menace, that maybe some of you remember. But as Dr. Millett was initiated, Menace stood up in his own way and said, "I think we're getting up to our ass in university presidents." that was, he used to play like the tightwad in Oxford. But many of his friends knew him to be one of the big givers. There wasn't a family that didn't have enough coal in Oxford that John Menace didn't see to it that they kept warm during the winter. But anyhow, he tried to play his part. In those days, instead of having these delicious cookies, which you people enjoy, we had crackers. And so Tightwad Menace would fill his coat pocket full of crackers. Well, we had another tightwad agitator in the town who made toasted rolls. I think his name was Tuffy. And Tuffy would immediately slip over next to Menace and crunch all those crackers in his pocket. Anyhow, it was fun. And we did have the 3 presidents in the club simultaneously at one time. Another one of those requirements, which we long ago have forgotten, I'm sure, is attendance. In those days, Rotary Internationals, is this a spy from Rotary International? What is this?
No, this one is different.
Oh, well, maybe I can teach you a few things. Anyhow, we had this requirement that you could only miss 3 meetings. And you could make those 3 meetings by going to the regular meeting, going to a meeting immediately after that at some other club, or not here, you had to get the extra room, or you could go to a meeting before the official meeting. So we maintained that rule very, very specifically. And in fact, there were probably not anymore, a few prominent members of this community were relieved of their membership in Oxford Rotary because they missed more than 3 meetings. Now, there were 2 guys that didn't get that message. They got into a race, and you're not going to believe me, but don't call me a liar, who had 50 years perfect attendance. One of them was me. And when my sweetheart became needing me more, I gave up after 5 years and 9 months. This other devoted soul, Bob Miller, stayed the added 3 months, so he has 51 years. And if you ask him, you'll probably. Anyhow, that was the attendance rule, and somehow it slipped under the table. I don't know how, but we no longer face that retirement. As I said, we did expel people who did not meet that standing. And so I had to scurry around. The Hamilton Club and the Eden Club actually thought I was a member of their clubs because I made up so often. But I did hit a few other clubs in those 50 years. Wonderful makeups at the Grand Duchy of Netherlands of Luxembourg, London, England, where my table, 10 or 12 people, greeted me and welcomed me with a glass of wonderful Scotch whiskey. And that was a pleasure. Khartoum, one of the principal cities of Africa, where the Khartoum Club wanted to show me what they were doing. So they took me through the city and showed me a house they built for some dependent family. The house had no sewer. The sewer was a big trench that ran down the city block, and it had no water, but they had done a wonderful thing for people in their community. So that was Khartoum. My father-in-law was a member of the club in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, so obviously I had to make up there. I made up in Wyoming. I can't remember the name of the city anymore, but we had an RV, big Winnebago in those days, and we traveled the world, the country, making up Rotary. And Rotary in those days, and maybe it still does, I don't know, had a book that listed every Rotary club. So I got the map and the book together, and I never missed a club meeting during that 50-year period. And I had 3 little girls that traveled with me then. And the youngest, who's, don't say anybody, but she's the sweetest. We spent the night in one of the great parks out in Wyoming, I forget which one. And little Susie heard about the bears in the park. So she got a big, long piece of string and put it out the window of the Winnebago and put a marshmallow on the end. But we didn't get any bears. I remember that if you don't.
You mentioned the banners?
And the banners. Thank you, Bob. What could I do without Bob? Each club had a banner established for their own club. And these banners were hallmarks. We used to have a big, huge banner here that had all the banners that our club had on it. But through a couple of these guys here, they've preserved that and we still have it, but it's not displayed. But when you made up a meeting in Timbuktu, you took with you an Oxford Club banner, and we couldn't find one here. But the design, I think, is on our, is it here?
City.
No, it isn't there.
The city, skyline.
No. It was a beautiful banner designed by one of the members of the club who was in the art department. And we always carried those. When I did my traveling, I'd have 5 or 6 of them with me. I would exchange that at the club where I made up. They would give me one of their banners, which I brought back here, and those are made up. Now we have them all. Susie, throw those around.
Okay.
Those are just a few of the banners that we have. But it was just automatic that when you went any place, you took a club banner and you brought one back from those clubs. So that's the story of the banners. I want to talk a minute about the meeting places, which there are in abundance. We started out meeting in what I remember is the huddle, which if there's anybody here long enough, it was a student hangout on Park. It was a city. It was the only decent restaurant in town. And it was on Park Place. The owner operator had operated it forever. And when we were chartered, or we started meeting them, well, it wasn't too long that he finally wore out and he sold the meeting place to a young Miami student. Well, this student in his first meal served it on paper plates. Well, the Rotary Club was a pretty significant group and we weren't about to eat our meals on paper plates, I can tell you that. So we searched around and times were even harder than they are today to find a place where Rotary could meet. But finally we heard about this restaurant that's out on 27th, north of town. So we thought, well, nothing to lose, we'll try it. Well, we did have something to lose. It was such a lousy place. Fortunately, after we'd been there for I don't know, less than a year, the darn place burned down. And the rumor all over town was that Rotary had set it on fire.
What was the name of this?
I can't remember that, Jay. I told you I'm a little different.
Well, what is it today?
Oh, it's gone, well, burned down. It's where that shopping center is out there that they built.
Westgate.
Westgate, yeah, it was in that spot. But I don't think they ever replaced it. At least Rotary never went there. Okay, so was that spot. And then we went to the Bethel AME Church. And the sweet ladies of the church prepared our meals. Unfortunately, they said, well, we just can't do this anymore. So we had to leave all our good home cooking,
Right.
fried chicken, Jack, and move on to another place. Well, our big mother here at Miami University finally took us in. And we had our meals in the Millette Hall. Is that right?
North Concourse.
Yeah.
North
Millette
Concourse.
Hall and the North Concourse. That's right. Maybe I'm catching up with some of these newly minted guys who, the meal was great. They had a huge variety. It was set up banquet style. And so it was wonderful. But then I heard a rumor, and it might be true. There was those who were resentful of Miami University interfering with commerce in the community, and I think they were sensitive to that. So they notified us that they no longer could provide our food there. And so then we went to the hotel where we were, and
Yeah.
then here, the Elks Hotel. And after the change in ownership there and so forth, why they finally left. We finally left. So that is the history of the places where your Rotary Club has met over the 50 odd years. Next, Susie Bell, tell us a little about the Hefner thing, because you know more about it than I do.
Well, do you want to talk about Bob Hefner and then?
I
I'll
will,
jump in?
sweetheart.
You want to do that first? and
Yeah,
let me jump
let me
in?
do that
Okay.
first. I spoke of our wonderful initial founder, Bob Miller, but he had a partner, and the partner was Bob Hefner. And Bob Miller and Bob Hefner interlocked with Paul Armstead from the Hamilton Club. And those two men, Bob Hefner and Bob Miller, really were the initial founders of the club. And so they brought the club back to the other 6 of us who became founders. And Bob Hefner was always 100% Rotary, there's no question about that. And at one point, under his leadership, he decided that we needed some revenue. So he initiated the Hefner Birthday Fund. Right, Susie?
Right, so that was the club's first fundraiser, was the birthday club that Bob Hefner came up with, and members would contribute money on their birthday to the fund. So years later in 1988, the club decided why not change the name of the birthday fund to the Hefner Fund to honor Bob and everything that he had done. So starting in 1988, we started the Hefner Fund, and gosh, guys, when I think about it, we have given away almost $700,000 in grants to the community since that time. So pretty nice fun.
Thank you, Susie. Other sources of revenue for our gifting. Number one, I think probably the largest, which went on for several years, was the Rotary golf outing. And once a year, we would have the golf outing out at Houston Woods and sell tickets to the outing, and then provided prizes and so forth. And we had a huge turnout for that event for a number of years. And somehow it slipped off the track. I'm not sure what happened, but anyhow, it went bypass. And from there, we just picked up little bits and pieces here and there. One fun time we would have a roast in Whitrow Court. Our first roastee was Dick Schreider, who was the athletic director. And are you there?
No, I was not.
Were you, I was gonna say, were you born?
That was my next question. Well, Schreider was a wonderful athletic director. And he went right along with the gig. And he was a member of Rotary. So he showed up to be roasted. And he took so much of it. And finally, he took his shirt and just ripped it off. Well, it was a fake. And underneath, he had some jersey on. I forgot what it was. But anyhow, that was an entertainment. So we had to try to replicate that. And we were just talking about it. We had several wonderful retirees in Oxford. One of them was Smokey Alston, who you old folks would know, coached baseball. The other one was Weeb Eubank. And when I would go to the basketball games, in my row would be Smokey and Weeb sitting down the row. So we talked Weeb into being roasted. And he put up with it, and it was a lot of fun. Weeb was a dear friend and a wonderful guy. This day, we were going to an event over in your athletic area for a man who had just made a sizable contribution to underwrite, and Miami was poor then, they're rich now, thanks to Susie. Anyhow, they were poor then, so they were trying to find ways to raise money. So they set up a schematic of the football team. And you could buy each player and the coaches. And so this loyal Miamian bought the coach. And so what's to do, but you have to honor a major contributor. So they honored him and introduced him, and Weeb was right behind me. He gave everybody some. You know, the most dangerous thing in the world is an amateur with a microphone. And it took me a minute to think about that, in just a second, and I turned around. There was Weeb going out the back door. So since then, I like to quote that, and I always follow it by saying, and don't try the doors because they're all locked. But anyhow, we had roasts and we had other little means of support. So that's the story there. Now, you haven't asked me a darn question.
Women.
Oh no, I'm going
You
to
said
say
it.
that till late and the door's not locked. Give me a second to get my brain working here. Oh, you were supposed to ask me what my favorite thing was in Rotary.
What's your favorite thing in Rotary?
Thank you for the lead. I think one of the most favorite things was the district conference. And your club sponsored a district conference. It just so happened that Bob Miller was the president of the club at that time. And
President of the district, right?
president of the district.
District governor.
Oh, right, district governor, that is true, thank you. And Bob Miller was the chief executive of a second-rate fraternity all his life. And he knew that I was the chief executive of a first-rate fraternity.
Boys Club.
So when he took this responsibility, who did he ask to be the chairman of the district conference? Well, you know who. So anyhow, we did that. But it was a wonderful thing. Every Rotarian in the club bought a badge, a lovely badge you could put on your navy blue jacket. Any of you guys know what a navy blue jacket is? And anyhow, we all had those with Oxford Rotary Club. We had it was held in Cincinnati at one of the fine hotels that I can't remember. And terrific program. Miami Glee Club sang, the whole Glee Club, and relying on the resources of wonderful Mother Miami, we were able to have a great 2-day district conference in Cincinnati. So that went along well, and every member of the club participated. They were all there. One of my stories about Schreider, Dick. Dick had a gift of gab. It'd have to be an athletic director. So we got him up in front of 200 people to give a little talk. I don't even remember what it was about now, but it was entertaining. So Schreider's up there and I'm sitting in the back of the room. And all of a sudden he starts fidgeting and looking at me. He's come on. Well, there was to be an act of 3 guys or 4 guys to follow him. Well, they weren't showing up. And there's Schreider. He came from a little town, Athens, over in Ohio. And he told every farmer joke that you could think of, and he was still not out of time. So I immediately get out through the hotel. Where do you think I found him? In the bar, of course. So I rushed him in there. Schreider said he'd never let me forget. So he held that against me all of my life. We had an alumni club here, basket. The first Red Skin Club was made up of the Round Ball Club. I'm going over into Miami history, so you've taken all this in. Was the Round Ball Club, and that was only for basketball. So we thought, well, football deserves an honor. So my first year as president of this Maverick Club, we had to come up with a name. So we held a contest, I think, and the name became the Tomahawk Club. Well, man, that is taboo. So it didn't take long before the name was changed. And wow, now what is it called? No. Oh, shoot. The money-raising athletic club.
Red and White Club?
Red and White. The name has progressed onto safer grounds. Now it's Red and White. But anyhow, that was fun to see that group. You can see I'm not with it today, but I wouldn't miss this meeting because I want to pass this on to you young guys. But I have to think back that I'm trying to follow in the footsteps of one of our older presidents. On the day of his giving up his presidency, he was wanting to give his final retreat. And he's standing on the podium in Millett Hall with the whole club there. And he was stricken by a slight stroke. And he fell off the podium and laid there. And one of our doctor members ran up to him and revived him. Well, he wasn't the unofficial mayor of Dartown for no reason. He got up and gave the rest of his speech. So Kirk Meade is his name. And that was always a fun story. So that's why I feel obligated. I want to be here today. I'm not going to fall off my chair, but I wanted to talk about Kirk. And running out of, oh, well, and of course, another thing, I'm not going to call on you again. Another thing was our student exchange, which Oxford really, this club really went after in a big way. And it was very, very rewarding. The district would select one student in the district from a group of students that were recommended by each club in the district. And after speeches and on, one student was recommended from each club, and they became our candidate for the Rotarian Student of the Year, who was sent in exchange to some European club that was all arranged through the district governor. And they lived for a year in that community where it was. And in the exchange, we got a student from that club back here. And so all the clubs in the district would adopt that student. And they would live in this community for a month or two and attend our meetings. And it was such a rewarding experience. And I don't think, I forget who it is, but we have a member of this club who was a Rotary student. And I forget where he went.
Yeah. Ambassadorial school.
Ambassadorial scholar, right? So that was a very pleasant experience that we had in Rotary. And then we had the club exchange, where we exchanged 5 members from this club with another club, 5 members. Our first exchange was Japanese. And I can remember so well entertaining the 5 Japanese who were here in this district for a period of time. Well, each club that we would send afar would be an Oxford Rotarian member. And Kirk Meade was the first Oxford Rotarian supervisor, and he took his group to Japan. Cole Potter took a group to India, and of course they sent a group back here. So we had 5 members of Indian clubs in this district. And I would think we sent 2 or 3 other. Oh, that's right.
Yes,
Yeah, Bob Miller. That's right. Thank you. His name keeps cropping up all the time. Anyhow, that was a wonderful experience. And those 5 students would spend 4 or 5 days in Oxford. And Mother Miami was an ideal place to house them. So we always got a 4 or 5 day visit here, whereas other clubs in the district did not have that opportunity. But to meet these kids and learn about them was another real experience.
Hey, Dad,
Yeah.
your time is out, but
Oh,
you need to cover the women issue, because I bet that's a good.
my time is out. I'm sorry. Thank you, honey. Okay, women. 1987, Rotary, you get out of here, young lady. You're not allowed to hear. 1987, Rotary International decided to tackle the woman issue. And I'm sure it was discussed and negotiated at the highest level of Rotary. And ultimately, they felt that it would be an asset to the organization. So women were approved. Doug Wilson was our president. And so he had to rattle with 25 men here to get that deal sold. And he did work on it, to his credit, and it did happen. But we were a little coy. We didn't just take a woman in. We had an honorary member. And that honorary member was Mrs. Avis Cullen, who was the owner and the operator of the Oxford Press and the woman #1 lady doer in Oxford. And Avis was a wonderful addition. We just looked it up. We didn't have an honorary member very long. We started having regular members. And I can testify that we had a lot of regular members. Ladies, don't get mad. Several of those members wanted Rotary International on their vita. And so they could say they were a member of Rotary. The balance were the greatest members of this club, and many of them really pushed this club forward. Bob told me how many lady presidents we had. 6, and they were astronomical. They were phenomenal and introduced things to the club that just were such a boost to the club. And now, having said that, you think we're going to get that leadership from our next president?
Yeah. Darn right you will.
I know we will. I know we will. Oh, Oxford Rotary has been blessed with women presidents, and I hope they will be long into the future. That's one thing we couldn't change and get along with. So my time's up.
Time's up.
Time's up. Good. No questions. That's good.
Susie was the president that brought the Stars and Stripes to us.
Susie has been a great
I brought the idea.
follower.
You all brought it to the club. You all brought it. Well, you guys made it
Anyhow, time to leave. Those who want to take a sandwich, take one.
happen.
Or a cookie.
Good job. Good job.
I think we can, no, and there's no offense if I get by without questions and just accept his talk.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful thing because of the time.
Fred,
Thank you so much. Fred.
Carry it on. You all carry it forward.
This is a mighty legacy, seriously, and so I've only got a few more months to go. I don't know it in that time, but this is quite a story. I do have a couple of other things to mention very quickly. Next week will be Michaela Anders, the president of Rotary, University Club level. So we look forward to that. This is the chain of badges of all the presidents. What are we lacking? 26?
26.
26. And then it will be so long that it will be obscene. No, I mean, we'll do something. We'll do loop it or, you know, anyway.
Want to mention it?
And then,
Hey, Bob.
yeah,
I hate to interrupt the president, but I want to give the history of this medallion. Bill Pulley, who was not a charter member, but was a devoted member shortly thereafter, had a business that he had to operate in Australia. And so he made up a lot in Australia. And I don't know which club it was, but that club had this medallion that the president would wear. So nothing would be done, but Pulley bought one for Oxford, and the names of the presidents, minus the last 26, are listed on this. Another piece of Rotary tradition that's gone by the by.
I'm thinking of making some more out of tinfoil, but you know, we have heard that there's somebody who makes these, right? Okay, so we may get on this. And we also, we are talking about reviving the exchange of students and even Rotarians or whatever, you know, bags of rice, tobacco. So we are trying, this is a terrible time, right? The pandemic, so we're not doing any of that kind of stuff, but we're thinking and talking about it, and Lisa, you'll have a lot. Last thing, message today came from Rotary International, just a couple of excerpts. We see the decision to vaccinate as a civic and humanitarian imperative. It is not a political or religious organization, it is a service organization, and this is the lens through which we are advising our position. It talks about an infodemic of misinformation. I'm just quoting from this message now, and it came from Shakhtar Mehta, who is the current president of Rotary International, and then the chair of the Rotary Foundation has the fantastic apt name for this day, John Germ. So seriously, sorry. He's also signed this, but he's I guess in Evanston, Illinois. So thank you very much again, Fred. Thank you all for coming. I think we had a good turnout with you people here and on Zoom. So let's hope we can carry this forward. The pandemic's supposed to peak here in a year now. So we'll hope that at some point we can get back.
We started with 10 people on Zoom. We still have 10 people on Zoom.
Zoomers. Ring the bell. Thank you, Bob.